We're now on Daf Ayin Zayin of the case. Hasam and our Mishnah Ki Omra, when the woman says that I originally accepted his movement, Havina Ba'adei, and I'm even now I'm willing to live with his movement. Since she's willing to live with his movement in our Mishnah, all this ruling in the Mishnah that we force him to divorce his wife, that's for her benefit. But if she's willing to live with him, that's fine. But here in the case of Tachlifa, where 10 years went by, even if she says, I'm willing to remain married to him, maybe she thinks it's her fault that she can't have children, we're not going to allow the marriage to go on because she's preventing him from period viridya. So therefore, that din is not quoted in the Mishnah. It's not included in the enumeration of the cases of movement, because the Mishnah is enumerating exclusively the cases where the kfir is for her benefit, and if she accepts it, there's no kfir. So Gemara asks about this answer, Rabbi Abba, Barei Mukashchir, the Afagav, the Omra Bina Badal Lo Shavkinin, the Takana. In the case of Mukashchir, to force a divorce was done for his benefit, not for hers. In that sense, it's very similar to Eser Shana V'Lo. So you see that even in the case where the takana, the move of Kofnos Olahotzi was for his benefit, nevertheless it's listed in the Mishnah, the Snan, Chutz Mimukeshchin, Mipnei Shema, which means that Tashma Shamita is very difficult. In the case of Mukashchir, it's going to cause him to perhaps get worse, and his situation deteriorates. So Rabban made a takana for his benefit that he can't continue in that marriage. Ukintani, and yet that's listed in the Mishnah. So you see that even takanos flitovaso of moving are listed in the Mishnah. Therefore, Eser Shana V'Lo Banim should also be listed in the Mishnah. Hasam, the more answers in the case of Mukashin Ki Omar Daira Ba'adei Sadi. You know what? Let me remain married to him, and we will abstain from any intimacy. We will always have witnesses with us, and we'll never be private. It's if she makes such a claim, we're going to allow the marriage to continue. We're not going to force him to divorce his wife. Why? Because we know that he's not going to suffer from Tashma Shamita. But Hacha, in the case of a woman who didn't give birth, even though she says, I'm going to live with my husband, with Aiden, we're not going to allow that to go on because she's preventing him from the mitzvah of period of rivia. He's not going to be able to marry another woman as long as he's married to her. And therefore, and this din is left out of the Mishnah because our Mishnah is talking about cases where the kviya is l'tovasa. And therefore, if she wants to continue living with him, for example, in the case of a mukashkin with Adim, so that's listed in the Mishnah because that's l'tovasa. And she can allow, and she can make that commitment and allow the marriage to flourish, to continue. But in a case where there's no banim, there's an absolute halacha of kofanos alahotzi, even if she agrees to live with him, and therefore it's not listed in the Mishnah. Tanya, we learned in a brisa, Rav Yossi, Sachli Zaken Echad Mi'anshe Yushalayim. I heard from an elderly person from Yushalayim regarding Mukashchin, that Esrim, the Arba Mukashchin, the 24 categories of Mukashchin, Bekulam, regarding all of them, that intimacy is very detrimental to their health. He says here, lahafil b'saron. But the worst of all of them, out of the 24 categories, is called bale ra'asan. And this is a tumor in a person's brain. Chas v'sholom. It's kasha mikulam. That's the worst of all the mukei shchin. And there's a very interesting comment here, the Marsha, and also in the Yefei Nayim, that in the pasuk regarding Sarah who was taken captive by Paro, it says, "Vayinoga Hashem es Paro negoyim gedolim." What is negoyim gedolim? So the Medrash says, "Paro loka b'machlas ro'asan." Says the Maharsha, negoyim gedolim. That's called ro'asan. However, the Yefei Naim adds that Paro loka dafka with this machla to make it difficult for him to perform. And he would not be able to do Tashmish Amita, and that would save Sarah from a michshol, that Paro would not have a relationship with him. Nimai. How does this disease come about? The Sanya, Hikis Dam V'Shimesh Mitoso. Immediately after bloodletting, he had an intimacy. Havilo Banim V'Soikin, very weak children, if she becomes pregnant from this tashmi. But Ikizu Shneim, that's even worse, if both he and she had bloodletted and the Shimshon, and then they had this intercourse, and then she became pregnant. Havilo Banim Bali Rosan, that's the worst. Bali Rosan are very, very weak. And if she becomes pregnant from this tashmish, the child that's born will be very, very weak, and that's called Bali Rosan. When is it dangerous to have Tashmish Amita following Hakosis down? That's only because they didn't eat anything. Less one bar. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that if you donate blood, and I haven't done it unfortunately in a while, that immediately afterwards they give you something to drink or something. No? You remember that? Anyway, my simona. What are the symptoms of this terrible disease? Dalfon Einoi. His eyes are constantly tearing. V'daive nechire. And he's got mucus coming out of his nose, his nostrils constantly. V'aisile rida befume. And he's always dribbling, different kinds of, liquids that are coming out of his mouth. The Ramu Didve Iloye, and the flies are attacking him from left, right, and center. And that last statement got me a little scared. I don't know if you ever have this experience where you think that fly, he's after me. Umayasuse, is there a cure for Rasan, Machlos Rasan? Abaye, okay, here I need your help, Rabbi, if I can trouble you, because this next Gemara without an English translation is murder. I'll try to do the best I can, but you'll please help me out here if you can. Amar Abaye, first thing that we give him is something called Pila. He translates that as Sia, and strangely enough, in the footnote, he says it's Nana. Right? What's that called in English? Spearmint or something like that?
Mint. Yeah, the Art Scroll Hebrew has Nana, mint.
But this is impossible, I'll tell you. The Art Scroll is probably influenced by the same sources that I have here in my Masechet, but that's impossible. Why? Because look at the next thing. It says Be Lodana. And the translation here is Lana, which is mint. I don't understand. What's the difference between Pila and Lodana? Do you have anything there in the English?
I have laudanum.
Oh, so I don't know what that is. I guess it's.
I don't know either.
Yeah. The girda de goza, right? So you have a walnut, and you scrape off the outer, the wooden covering over a walnut, and that klipas ha'etz is something that you're gonna somehow mix into a concoction over here. Does he have anything there on that?
It's exactly what you just said.
Okay, now girda the ashpa. Okay, this has to do with tanning an animal, and when you scrape off the hide of the animal, then you somehow mix that hide into this concoction. 1 second, he adds something on the bottom. No, Uklil Malka. Okay, he says that this in Hebrew is called Chabat Selet. What's that in English?
Artemisia.
Okay. You know,
We're just
sometimes
as
the
wise.
Hebrew is easier than the English because they give you
Like
scientific.
Chavatel, it's a flower.
It's a flower.
It's a flower of some sort.
Askala the dikla sumka. Okay, now you have certain kinds of dates that are very red, and if you scrape off the outside peel of these very red dates, then apparently that has a therapeutic value to it. And sholik lubadi adogi, they mix it all together, this concoction, and they cook it in a pot, in a cauldron. Okay, now we have to, I don't know where you'd find such a house, but it's a house that's made completely of marble. So we bring him into this chola, we bring him into this marble house. And this is a place that's completely protected from the winds. The Eloi Kabesa the Shisha, if you can't find such a bias, then Maile Besa the Shev Livne the Aricha will bring him into a house that has very thick walls. And it means that the bricks of the walls are very thick. Can you read to me the English on that?
Brings the patient into a house whose walls have the thickness of 7 bricks and 1 small brick.
7 bricks and 1 small brick. I guess it's like saying 7 sick,
7 and a bit bricks.
And a bit. I don't know if this is based on science, the science of their time at least, or it's a metaphysical, mystical treatment. Now this is very reminiscent of all those sugyas and Shabbos that would drove me nuts. I almost dropped out of, I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating. I almost dropped out of Daf Yomi when I learned those refuah sugyas and Shabbos. I couldn't tolerate it. Anyway, he says, Yishmok Sholosh Meos Kosos. Right? You have this concoction, and it's massive. And you have 300 cups of this massive liquid, and you pour it over his head. Aderafye Arisa de Moche. And somehow it softens the skull. And now we can do a surgical operation on his skull. Karla Moche, you rip open his skull, you see the brain. This is mamish brain surgery. Unfortunately, one of the members of our community here in Efrat, his wife is going through brain surgery as we speak. Oh no, she starts in 20 minutes in Hadassah. Okay, we might see Arba Tarfe di Osa, right? These are Hadassim, right? Ole Hadassim. Hadassim in English are, I think, myrtle. Does that make sense? Yeah. Umadli called Chad Kara. And somehow he uses these Ale Hadas as like thongs or something. And he puts them underneath this tumor, which he calls Ragle Asheretz, Umosiv Chad. So he has one underneath and one on top. The Shokil Bitsavta, and like he uses them as tongs, and he removes the tumor. The Koli lady burns it. The Elo Hadri love it because this tumor has a certain life force to it, and if you don't burn it, it's going to come back again. Machriz Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, with regard to being careful about this disease, he announced, "Hizar mizruvim shel bale rasan." Those flies that keep circuiting around this bali rasan are carrying some very heavy germs, and be careful about that, because that could make it very contagious. Rabbi Zera lo havi yosef b'zeke. Rabbi Zera would be very careful that he would not sit himself down anywhere where the winds would blow around this chola and carry the germs from this chola. The Rabbi Loza lo ayel biole. Rabbi Loza would never enter into the tent of this chola, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi, they would go to another extreme. They would not eat eggs that were laid by a hen in that mavui where that chola lived. That's how far. Again, one thing you get from this Gemara, which I find very exciting, is that the Gemara was well aware of contagious diseases. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Michrech Behu, the Asik B'Torah. I mean, this is the unbelievable piety of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, that he didn't take that care. He wanted to teach Torah, and he would teach Torah to the Balei Ra'asan, Machas Ra'asan. He would sit next to him, and he felt that the Torah would protect him. The Omer, he would declare, this reminds me of the Yerushalmi Tzaddik, Rabbi Levin. He was the only one that went to the lepers. You remember that? If you ever read the book Ish Tzadikaya, right? Ayeles ahavim v'yalas chen. So he quotes a pasuk here in Mishlei that is interpreted to be alluding to Torah. Im chen mala al lomdeha, right? It says yalas chen, and it's referring to Ayeles ahavim who love the Torah. Agune lo mignen, question mark. Right, it's a rhetorical question. If the Torah is malas chen, then how much more so would it protect you? And therefore, he was absolutely sure and certain that the Torah would protect him, and he would not be in any way nizak, from this disease. And Kiyami Shachiv, when Yeshua ben Levi died, Amru Lei Bezdin said up in the Bezdin Shomal Malach Hamaves. Zil the Ovid Re'use. I want you to fulfill the will of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Ozal. So the Malach goes down to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, this Chazile, and he shows up in front of Rabbi Yeshua ben Omer Le. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says to Malach HaMoves, take me to Gan Eden. The Achli Liduchtoi. Show me exactly where's my place in Gan Eden. Omer Le, Malach HaMoves says to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, L'chai, meaning I agree. But before they went to Gan Eden, Amar Le, Rabbi Shimon Levi says to Malach HaMoves, Havli Sakinuch, give me your knife, and I'm going to do your bidding. I'm going to take the neshamas of those who have to die. Dilma miva'asas libi urcha. I'm afraid that if I don't protect myself from you, if you don't give me your knife, then on the way to Gan Eden, tafchideni, you're going to frighten me. And the Malamovis agreed, v'yovanil, and he gave the knife to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Ki mota lahasam, when they got to Gan Eden, dalye kamachvile. The Malamovis dalye, he I guess lifted him up, and he shows him that's the place where you'll find yourself in Gan Eden. Shvar, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi starts jumping, v'nafal alhu gisa, and he starts jumping from this world into the world of Gan Eden. Nakte v'kani deglime. So the Malach HaMoves grabs hold of the corner of the beged of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi to take him out of Gan Eden. Omalace, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi turns to the Malach HaMoves, Bishvuasa, and he takes a shvua, de lo asina. I'm not going to come out of Gan Eden. In other words, the Malach HaMoves, I'm not going to let you pull me out. So as a result of the shvua, the Malach HaMoves was powerless to remove Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi from Gan Eden. Omar Kudshabriku, so the Almighty declared, if if Rabbi Shua Levi will be shol on a shvua, then we can remove the shvua. Nishal leila tira. Nihad. So let him decide that he doesn't want the shvua, and the Kosh Baruch will be matter the shvua, and he can go out of Gan Eden. But Elo, if Rabbi Shua Levi insists that he's not going to be shol on his shvua, is lo nahadeh, right? He's not going to rescind his shvua. He'll remain in Gan Eden. And Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi would actually refuse to be shol on his shvua, and he remained in Gan Eden. Amalei the Malcham Avos says to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, "Havli sakinoi, but give me back the knife." And Lo Avi Kayav, he refused. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi refused to give him back the knife. Nafka Baskol, a Baskol came out of the Amalei, and it said to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, "Hav nila, return the sakin to the Malcham Avos, the mitzvah of Bir Yosa." He needs it in order to take the neshamas of the other brios who have to die. Now, after Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi remains in Gan Eden, Machriz Elio Kamei, Elio Navi makes a declaration in front of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Hanu Mokum Lebar Liboy, Hanu Mokum Lebar Liboy. Make room for Ben Levi. Ozal, Ashkefe, the Rabbi Yeshua, the Rabbi Shimon Yochai, Rabbi Yosef al Tlasasar, Taktise Ke Pisa. Right, he was sitting on 13 chairs that were made of pure gold. Amal Le, Rabbi Shimon Yochai says to Rabbi Shimon Levi, Atu Bar Levi, are you the son of Levi? Amal Le, him? Yes. Rabbi Shimon Yochai turns and asks him, Nirasa Keshes Biyomecha, when you were alive, did you ever see a rainbow? Amal Le, Rav Shua responds, hey, I saw a rainbow. And came, Iato Bar Levi. It couldn't be that you are really Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. What does that mean? So I have here a Marsha. He says, Eina Toroi Lichros Shehichriz Panu Mokum Lebar Levi Kemen Shenirsa Keshes Biyomech. He wasn't saying that you're not Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, but he was saying that if you saw a rainbow in your lifetime, then it could not be that you were deserving of that hachraza that they were machris pnu makom lebar Levi. The Gemara says, "V'loi, this is not true. The lo avi midi." That in fact there was never a rainbow during the lifetime of Rabbi Shimon Levi. Ella, so why didn't Rabbi Shimon Levi say that? Sovar lo achzik kivus lo nafshoy. He didn't want to boast about the fact that there was never a rainbow in his lifetime. Rabbi Chanina bar Papa Shushvina Havi, he was the beloved of the Malcham Avos. He was always in the presence of the Malcham Avos. He writes in Metzinu Shamalcham Sayrogil Eitzel Chachamim. When it was time for Rabbi Chanina bar Papa to die, Amru lei Bezen Shel Mala, turned to the Malcham Avos, Zil v'Ovid Re'use, fulfill his last will. Azil legabe the Itchazile, so the Malcham Avos, as we saw before, appears to Rabbi Chanina. Amalei, so Rabbi Chanina says to the Malcham Avos, Shavki Talsin Yom Adeni Hader Talmudoi. Give me a 30-day stay. I want to review all the Talmud, the Torah, that I learned, that I studied during the course of my life. The Amri, because in the Bezen Shomala they say, Ashri Misha Bolakan V'Talmudo Biyodo. Blessed is he that comes to the world to come with his Talmud. So I want to make sure I review all my Torah before I go to the world to come. Shav gave him, Malchus gave him that 30-day period. Yomi, after 30 days, Ozil with Chazile, he shows up to Reb Chanina Bar Papa, Malchus, Mamalei, so Malchus, Reb Chanina says to Malchus, take me to Gan Eden, show me my place in Gan Eden. Mamalei, Malchus says, L'chai, okay, fine. Amalei, Reb Chanina Bar Papa says to Malchus, Havli Sakina, I want to take your sakin, because I'm going to be overwhelmed with fear on the way. Amalei, Malchus says to him, Kechavrach, are you going to try to pull the same shtick that Rabbi Shimon Levi pulled, and you're going to jump into Gan Eden? I'm not going to give you my knife. Amalei, Reb Chanina Bar Papa says to Malchus, I see Sefer Torah v'chazi. Let's take a look at a Sefer Torah. Open it up. Show me something that is required and mandated by the Torah that I didn't fulfill. And therefore, if ani roy likanis l'gan Eden, I deserve to circumvent death and go live into Gan Eden, and you have no ability to control me, and I'm on the same wavelength, so to speak, as Rabbi Yeshua Levi, who completely avoided the Malach HaMavos and went straight to Gan Eden. Amalei, the Malach HaMavos says, "Mi ikarchach v'balei rasan v'yasti the Torah." Are you on the level of Rabbi Yeshua Levi that you make your comparison that makes you deserve it, like Rabbi Shimon Levi, to go directly into Gan Eden before the Malach HaMavos can take your life? Did you learn Torah with the Balei Rasan? You're not on that level. Vafilu Hachi, even though Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa was not Zocha that the Malach HaMavos couldn't take his life, but nevertheless, Kinoch Nafshe, Afsikle Amuda Denur Bein Deli Alma. There was a pillar of fire that separated him from the rest of the world. In Miriam, we have a Kabbalah, we have a Masorah, that the L'mafsik Amud Nora L'chad B'dor L'train B'dor. Only the greatest, or the two great tops in the door, would have such a phenomenon of this fire, this Amud fire. Korav L'gabei, Rabbi Alexander Yomar, and Rabbi Alexandri came close to the mita, to the beer, and he asked him, I say, Bishvil Kvod Chacham. So it seems that Rabbi Alexandri requested from Rabbi Chanina to remove this Amuda Eish. Why? Because the other Chachamim would now be, so to speak, there would be a Pgia on their cover. But Rabbi Chanina did not pay attention, and the Amuda Eish remained. Again, Rabbi Alexandri asks him, I say, Bishvil Kvod Avicha, your father, Papa, did not have this Amudah below Ashkech. I say Bishvil Kvod Atzmecha, so that we would be able to come close to your Makom Kvura, and it be your covet if we could give you the proper eulogy and his talent. And then the Amudah Eish was removed. Amar Abaye says, in commenting on this whole Agadic story, that when the Amudah Eish terminated, not terminated, but when it separated, I should say, and separated Reb Chanina Bar Papa from the rest of the world, to separate him from those who did not fulfill the Torah like he did. Amalei Rav Adavar Masti says, this story comes lahotzi me'arav below isle makin le'igre. Okay, so this is a case of a tzaddik or a rav that doesn't have a makkah on his gad as the Torah commands. That's the person that fits this profile that the Amud Eisha is separated from that person. The Lohi. The Gemara says, the Havi Hava. It's as if they were implying that maybe Abaye himself did not have a makkah, but he had a makkah. He shaitu the shad yezika. At that moment, there was a wind that happened to blow down the makkah. Why is it that in Bavel we're free of this makkah? We eat tradim. I used to think that tradim was spinach, but it's not spinach. I think it's beets. How does he translate beets? Bishosin shecher shel hizmi. And there was a certain growth, a kind of kotzim, a little brush named hizmi, and it had it had hops, and from those hops they made beer, and they drank the beer. Why don't we find soras in Bavel? Mipnei she'ochlin trodin v'shosin shecha v'rochtzin b'nei pras. Hadron alecha hamadi, hadron alecha hamadi. Thank you very much, and have a great day.